This is Battleground PA, a PennLive podcast discussing the issues that matter to Pennsylvanians and documenting the events in the Keystone State and beyond that could shape how you vote in the 2024 elections.
Well, greetings again. Hello, everyone. All of our viewers and our listeners and our readers here. This is Joyce Davis. I'm PennLive's outreach and opinion editor, and this is Battleground PA. And you know it's Battleground PA because you have Jeffrey Lord sitting there pulling up for the Republican side there. How are you, Jeffrey?
I'm just hanging in there, Joyce.
You're just hanging in there.
I wish this election would go on for another year.
Yeah, you and me both. Thank you, Jeffrey, for that. But we do are privileged and really honored to have with us today a former governor that is still so highly respected. I was able to witness just how highly respected Governor Tom Corbett is at the press club luncheon that we recently had, where he was keynote speaker, and people were listening to him like he had something to say. And so I said, maybe we should get him on Battleground PA. So Governor Corbett, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us here.
But Joyce, thank you for having me on. And I think you got some questions for me.
I do. Well, the first question is really just going to throw the whole football over to you and to say, listen, you have decided to step out and to perhaps try to offer some, I guess, guidance to voters. And I noticed that you've kind of coalesced with some other former governors and former elected officials to try to make a statement or to offer guidance for the election. So I'm going to turn it over to you now. What is going on? Why have you joined these coalitions? What is the message you're trying to give, especially the Pennsylvanians?
Well, Joyce, about 2 years ago, I was approached here at Duquesne University. We had a meeting with a group called Keep Our Republic. And for your listeners or viewers, keepourrepublic.org. All one word, .org is the website, and I urge everybody to go and take a look at there to see what we're doing. We are a nonpartisan group of bipartisan former officials, Republicans and Democrats, judges, U.S. attorneys, district attorneys, and so forth, that are trying to educate and demystify to the public what goes on from election night, 8 o'clock here in Pennsylvania, through January the 6th, frankly, and then into the inauguration with the election results. 4 years ago, we had a rather bumpy road, as we saw. It resulted in January the 6th being a particularly bumpy day in our history. And we would like to avoid that. And I want to stress that this is bipartisan. It's Republicans and Democrats that are working on this together just to educate. We're not telling anybody how to vote, who to vote for, or anything like that. But we are trying to educate. As a result, people say, well, obviously you're supporting Republicans. I said, publicly, I'm not supporting anybody. I won't tell you who I vote for. I don't need to tell you who I vote for. But this is an education. And I want everybody to feel comfortable that in this process, we are being entirely neutral in our presentation of some of the facts. One of those facts is this country elects presidents, but it actually selects electors in every state as to who is going to go and vote within the Electoral College for the candidate that they were elected for. So whoever wins the popular vote in the state, such as Pennsylvania, let's pick Ohio, since we're talking about Pennsylvania, we'll go to Ohio. Whoever wins it, whether it be Trump or Harris, we get all the electoral votes. It was a unique process that our founding fathers created over 200 years ago, or almost 200 years ago, I should say. No, 200 years ago. Anyhow, I don't think there's another place in the world that does it the way we do it. And those electors come together, and I believe it's December the 11th, come together by votes. They don't come personally together. They don't go to Washington. Joyce, when I was a kid growing up, I thought they all went to Washington and met down there.
Right.
I thought that'd be kind of neat to go do, right?
Absolutely.
They actually come to the seat of state government. In Pennsylvania, it's Harrisburg. And they all, if Harris would win, it would be Harris electors. If Trump wins, it'll be Trump electors. They'll come together and they'll register their votes. They'll be counted. And then it goes through a process. And part of that process is those votes have to be, and it'll be 19 votes, have to be sent down to Washington. But before that, the results have to be certified by the Secretary of the Commonwealth, which is Al Schmidt here in Pennsylvania, and then certified by the governors of each state. And here in Pennsylvania, obviously, Josh Shapiro would have to certify those results. Frankly, for the governor, it's more ministerial than anything, because the Secretary of State is the one that's in charge of counting all the votes. Everybody reports back to him, the counties. Let me take a side trip. Think about this. This is a federal election that gets delegated to the states, that then gets delegated to the counties, and the counties have to count all those votes. And then they send their results in to the Department of the Commonwealth, the Secretary of the Commonwealth. He has to certify that. Then the governor has to certify. Then it has to go to the archives in Washington by, I believe it's December the 11th. I don't have the date here right in front of me. From there, it then gets transported over to the president of the Senate in January 6th, and I believe it's the same date, where it's then recorded. Now, there was 4 years ago, there was some misunderstanding that maybe Vice President Pence had the ability to disregard the votes or discount certain votes. It's a whole different ball of wax, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But there was a passage of a bill in 2022 called the Election Count Reform Act. And in that act, it clearly said, and passed by Congress, that the vice president's duty is totally ministerial in nature. These are the results that we received. They came from the states to the archives and to me, and I certified that these are the results. And at that point, we now know who is going to be inaugurated on January the 20th.
So all of that hoopla over Pence not doing or should have done this or should have done, basically he was really just a figurehead, right?
Basically, and now under law, it really is just a figurehead. It's ministerial in nature. So there can't be any, you have to vote the way we want you to vote issue. And there was uncertainty. Well, recently, I shouldn't say that recently, September the 17th, some governors, myself included, Governor Blanchard and I sent a letter, and we have 20 governors, I believe, have signed on that. When I say governors, former governors, who urged the sitting governors of the 50 states in the territory of Puerto Rico, or Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, to sign on or certify the election results as they get them from their Department of State or Department of Commonwealth, whichever it is. With that being said, it should move a little more smoothly. We've got these former governors saying, this is your duty. We want you to fulfill your duty. It got a lot of press coverage across the state and across the nation. But it is both Republican and Democrat former governors signing on this together. So we're showing that kind of unity. And this is a unified effort to get us back to the process the way it was, I believe, intended to be, and how Congress has amended it as recently as 2 years ago.
Well, I think that's a great explanation of where things stand, and also helping our voters know that really the Electoral College, those 19 votes that will come, it's going to be done here. It's going to be very closely watched, right, as all the voting is. Let me ask you this. I don't know if you've met the Secretary of State, Al Schmidt.
I know Al very well.
I mean, he came before. I don't know if you heard him, Joe. Yeah, you might have been at the press club luncheon when Al Schmidt spoke. And he really tried to instill a great deal of confidence in the sanctity, so to speak, of Pennsylvania's elections, that they really have it under control. Now, Jeffrey, I don't know if you want to chime in here. You're a little more skeptical than I am, but I wanted to hear what Governor Corbett's idea of is whether he thinks they're safe. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Well, the reason I'm skeptical, and the governor may remember some of this, in 1994, we had a special election for the state Senate in Philadelphia, and the Republican, quote unquote, lost. That was Bruce Marks. And he questioned the results. And the bottom line was, and I remember, and I made a point of noting it, it was on the front page of the New York Times because it shifted the balance of the state Senate. A federal judge went through the election returns, decided that the absentee ballots, that there was corruption, issued an opinion in which he said, and these are his exact words, there was a massive scheme by Democrats to steal the election, quote unquote. And he upended it, took the Democrat out, and put Bruce Marks in the Senate. Beyond that, we've had, the conviction of a former congressman, Democratic congressman, a Philadelphia judge of elections. I mean, so I'm not telling the governor anything new. Just suffice to say, our state that managed to produce the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution has a somewhat sketchy relationship with conducting honest elections. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I would say much has changed since 1994, particularly with elections and the process of the elections. And we've gone through a lot of litigation. We're still in certain litigation on the idea. In 1994, we didn't know what a mail-in vote was, did we?
Right.
Okay. We didn't have them until 2020.
Jeffrey still wishes we didn't have it.
Well, on the other hand, I'm collecting them right here in my office, and I'll drop them on November 5th.
I hope you drop them before that. Get them there. I don't trust the U.S. mails to get them there on time.
You got a point there.
Okay, so but times have really changed in that regard. The technologies, I understand it, and I've gone down to see the Allegheny County, which is Pittsburgh, how their process is, but also talked with Al Schmidt, the Secretary of the Commonwealth. The automation that is now applied to all of this is unbelievable across not only the bigger counties, but even some of the smaller counties. But there is a coding to make sure that nobody's voting twice. And I think you need to bring Al Schmidt on to explain it better than I can explain it. That there's a recording. If you ask for an absentee ballot or you ask for a mail-in ballot, they record that, and when they send it out to you, whether it's coming from the counties, they know who has done that. At the time of going to the polls on election day, if somebody would go to the polls, it would all be recorded there at the books, and those books at each polling place that you've already voted. Now I believe they can still say, well, I want to discount that, I want to throw that one away and revote. I don't think that's going to happen very much. I think the fear was they were going to just create false ballots. I think it's going to be a little harder for them to do that. And it really is. I look at it this way. The people that are running those elections are your next door neighbors in all those different precincts. And by far, we will accept Philadelphia for you at this moment, okay? The other counties, I have great confidence, and I have pretty good confidence in Philadelphia, to change the total outcome in the election in Pennsylvania. It would be very difficult to do it in some form of a conspiracy to be able to affect it across the state. I come from a background of being a prosecutor. I've always asked, if you've got proof, bring me the proof. There's been no proof of that from what happened 4 years ago across Pennsylvania. I haven't seen any proof presented to this point in time. You have the good work of all these local citizens that are working there on a regular basis, plus the backup of the automation. I think what concerns everybody is, well, why is it taking so long to get the results?
Yeah, that's going to be.
I got a couple comments on that. Number one, and I tell the media this all the time, could you please stop projecting who the winner is at 9 o'clock? Because they're projecting the winner.
You're right. You're absolutely right. Absolutely right.
We know why they do it. It's all about TV ratings. Just stop it. When we know a winner, then you should announce it's the winner of that state, the winner of Pennsylvania.
They should wait to get the paper in the morning to find out.
I think, not to date ourselves, but I think President Thomas E. Dewey would agree.
Well, I agree. Okay, because if you remember when I ran for Attorney General in 2004, the AP announced that I had lost and that Jim Eisenhower had won. And we told them, you guys are premature on this. And that was about 8 o'clock at night, election night, and we knew that the Republican T had not come in fully yet. Well, not only did I win the next morning, I won by 100,000 votes. Actually,
Wow.
more than 100,000 votes.
Yep.
So those projections create a impression, which can be good or could be bad or could be fearful. And I
Yes.
think 4 years ago, that led to, well, this is what they're telling us here. And then with national media today, they're saying X is happening in Georgia, Y is happening in Arizona. We only need to worry about Pennsylvania here in Pennsylvania.
And so the voters have to just be patient. They have to know it's going to take time, but that when they get the results, they'll be accurate.
Right. And with the automation that has gone on, now under the Election Count Reform Act, the federal government provided a certain amount of money, and I should have the detail, I don't have it here in front of me, as to how much it was. And if counties signed up to receive some of that money, they made one specific promise. They would not stop counting the votes election night until they got all the counting done. And many of them have planned shifts, 3 8-hour shifts that will continue to count. Number two, they received a great deal of money to buy new machines that will do a couple things. The first thing is when you mail in your ballot or your absentee ballot, they can't open it till election day. Now, when I say open it, there's 2 envelopes. Remember that. There's the outer envelope. That's the one that has the barcode as to it's Allison or it's Tom's or it's Joyce's. Okay. And then there's the inner envelope, the sealed one with your ballot. No recognition as to who is sending it. They can't even open those until, and I think I have this right, until 7 o'clock in the morning. They can get them ready. And then they put them into this machine, and the machine can go through them very, very quickly. They get them opened, and they open up the inner ballot and the true ballot, and they lay the ballot out, and then they feed the ballot into the machine. They can only start feeding the ballots into the machine at 8 o'clock at night after the polls have closed. If the polls are still open, they can't do it. Could the polls still be open? What if we have a hurricane or something?
Well, yes, that's right.
So we can't cover all aspects of that right now, and particularly in the limited time we have here today. We could talk about that some other time. But, those ballots will be counted, and in those machines, it'll go fairly quickly. The smaller counties, they're doing it a little bit differently, a little more old school, but they're not going through ballots that are like the old paper ballots that people put, okay, we got so many ballots for this person or so many votes for this person. And none of them, as far as I know, have any hanging chads that we need to worry about from 2000.
We've passed that era. Thank God. Yes.
That's exactly right. So, and I've told people, I've had the media ask me, how do you think the results, how long do you think it's going to take us to know? And I said, I think that we might even know late at night, election night, but early the next morning. And I know that people are looking at me incredulously, but I always remind them I'm optimistic that we're going to do this better than we did it 4 years ago. They said, well, Philadelphia, and reports are Philadelphia say, oh, it's going to take a few days. I'm looking at Philadelphia and saying, if you have these machines that can do this right, and you're doing it right, that I think you are under promising so that you can overperform.
Right.
If you say it's going to take 3 days and you do it in a day and a half, you look pretty good. Okay, no inference.
Yeah, well, that could be a strategy.
My friends in Philadelphia.
Governor, I also want to just run by you a few other things. In addition, we've got that, and we've got to be patient with the voting. But one of the concerns that I think we have too is the safety of the poll workers and what they're going through. And Al Schmidt is also he touched my heart when he talked about what he and his family went through after throughout all of this turmoil after the last election with being threatened. What are your thoughts on that? Is there any message you can give to people, to tell them that, look, these, as you said, these are our friends and neighbors. They're next door neighbors. They don't need to go through this to volunteer at the polls.
Well, my very first thought about it, and I'll take it from the position as governor, is that violence is no solution. And those who are committing violence are extremely wrong and criminal in that nature. That doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. But I hope no Republican and no Democrat resorts to violence. Am I concerned about outside agitators? Yes.
Hmm.
I think that's a fair claim. Are we
And
concerned?
when you say outside agitators, you're talking about foreign entities? Is that what you're talking about? The Chinas and the Russians?
It could be foreign. It could be just agitators, going from one state to the other saying, we want to shake this all up. We want to interfere. And I think, there are people saying, well, if we interfere, if we delay the electoral vote, it changes the whole process and maybe throws it into the state legislature or into the Congress itself. So, and that's a whole another half hour that we would have to do. So my standpoint on that is I hope there's no violence. Number two, and I've talked with Mr. Schmidt about this, and it comes from my background of being in the military, being governor, where, you hope for the best, but you prepare for the worst.
Right.
And hope is not a plan. And that being the case, I know that they've been in contact with law enforcement. I know if I was still governor, and I'm pretty sure the state police, they've already been contacted. They've come up with a plan of reaction. We are a very diverse state, geographically, physically, size of the different counties and stuff. The sheriff's departments, I know here in Allegheny County, they're the ones that would respond to go out to a polling place. They're already prepared. They've been talking about it. You never know. I mean, if somebody really wants to do something, what do they call in a threat? Who knows?
Right.
We can't completely block it out, but we can certainly be more prepared than we were 4 years ago.
Absolutely.
Two things that concern me. One, I mentioned the former congressman who had been indicted. He was indicted for paying a Philadelphia judge of elections to stand by his voting machine. And when people weren't looking, ka-ching, 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 ringing
Those
them up.
machines are gone.
And what?
Those machines are gone.
Well, they were both.
It's the old era, Jeffrey. People have moved on.
They were both convicted. Now, this was in 2014, 15, and 16, not all that long ago, and they were both convicted of voter fraud and sent to the federal pen. The other thing that just drove me crazy in 2020, they would show pictures of the quote unquote observers of the vote count. Well, there they are. They've got bicycle racks set up in front of the counting tables, the voting machines, etc. And the so-called observers were like half a football field away. I mean, it was quite a considerable distance. And I thought, well, how in the world can anybody observe anything if they're that far, in back of everything? And I just thought, what they should have is a Republican and a Democrat seated, maybe 3 feet from the voting machine with the counter, and then they watch the counter count. That's, to me, is what an observer is. And we don't seem to have that. And that's the kind of thing that I think causes problems.
Okay,
Is that a flaw?
Jeffrey, I can't address Philadelphia because I didn't go down there to see what they do. I can address Allegheny County. The voting machines in the precincts, everything is put on to a thumb drive. And those results are driven down. And there's Republican and Democrats driving them down to the central counting place, which is a warehouse on the north side of Pittsburgh. Huge warehouse just for the purpose of the election. And there, those thumb drives are then tabulated. Now, that's not talking about the mail-in ballots. That's what happens there. The mail-in ballots all go to the central counting place. There, again, another big room. I've seen the room. They're closer to it. There is like a bar to protect it. But there are cameras above watching everything.
Yeah.
They've spent a lot of money on the security of this election. I certainly hope, and maybe you can go talk to whoever runs the elections now, since Al Schmidt's not in Philadelphia, as to what they're doing there. And I'm pretty sure Al's probably saying, you guys got to up your game.
Right.
We're going to get them in here, Jeffrey. We'll get them on Battleground PA and let you grill them.
Good.
Okay?
Good.
Well, and just the final thing I wanted to, do you have any problem at all with mail-in balloting? Is that any concern for you, Governor Corbett?
No. After everything I've seen, I'm not going to mail in because I like going down and participating. I like, and let's back up. Every candidate at the polling place, every candidate is entitled to have one person inside the polling hall. to watch what's going on. Well, we have a presidential race, a senatorial race, congressional races, maybe a Senate race, and definitely a House race. So you could have the possibility of 5 races that would be 10 or more people in that hall. Now, my polling place is a fire hall, and there's actually 2 locations there. I think there's about 1,200 people total that voted in that location, and every county does it a little bit differently. So I feel comfortable there. There's also, you're allowed to be outside, as you know. I mean, we call it the gauntlet when you're trying to walk past all the supporters. Here's the thing for Schmidt. Here's the thing for Corbett. Please take a look. And we all go, no, go away from me. I already know who I'm voting for. If you don't know who you're voting for when you're walking in, I don't know that those handles at that point. Oh yeah, I'm going to do this guy. I like his handout. But that's entitled. The other area is, do you worry about people being outside there to intimidate? And that's where the sheriffs have to be called in. And I believe that in Allegheny County, there is one common pleas court judge who is the judge of elections in that respect. He's new to it this year, but I'm pretty sure he's had good conversations to the judge of election who was in the district attorney's office with me 40 years ago as to how you're supposed to do these things and making sure it's done quickly. We can't let this fester or anything.
No.
Everybody's going to be watching this much more closely than they were 4 years ago on election day.
Yes, well, everybody's going to be watching it, but there still is concern about actors who really don't have the best of our democracy in their hearts, and that is our concern. Just to simply throw kinks into the system, but the bottom line is, it's not going to help anybody. It won't help Republicans or Democrats, as you say, if we lose our republic, if we don't have confidence in it.
And I do worry about outside our borders interference trying to somehow affect the election. AI is scary as to what they can do with video stuff. I saw a video back in January at Keep Our Republic. We had a hacker come in and show us a video that he had created. It showed President Biden sitting at the Resolute desk saying that the election's been postponed until Friday in order to try and convince people not to come in on Tuesday. I would think the vast majority of people go, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. We get it out there. But it's those kind of little things. And I don't know about you, I get all kind of unsolicited emails that I don't even open anymore. I'm afraid to open them. We are in a different time. It's a much more difficult time.
Yes,
but I'll tell you, it's scary out there. I mean, frankly, this stuff I couldn't begin to understand. And it's not just domestic. I mean, I think there are foreign actors out there who have all sorts of computer style capabilities that we may not even be aware of, who are trying to monkey around in this kind of thing. And that's what disturbs.
And I don't think they are necessarily trying to pick the winner. I think they're trying to create chaos.
Yes. Exactly. And that's where Americans come in. We can be smart. We can listen to trusted voices, which is why I had someone like Governor Tom Corbett here. There are still people we can trust. There are still reliable sources. And that's where we need to go for our information. So with that, I'm going to...
Joyce, and as they say in Philadelphia, vote early and vote often.
All right, Jeff.
I thought that was Chicago.
All right. Well, listen, I thank you. I thank Jeffrey for being in here to help me out with the questioning. And Governor, thank you so much for joining us on Battleground PA. Vote early, vote often. Bye-bye, everyone.